Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from the relationship advice subreddit from Let's OK 8529, who says, my fiance's grandma, 75 female, made a wild accusation against me, 27 male, considering removing her from our wedding guest list. This last weekend, we had my fiance's family visit and it was an overall disaster. I've known her family since 2015. We recently bought a house and had an old college roommate move in to help out since we have spare bedrooms. My fiance and her sister had a small argument over her sister's behavior. They made up and I assumed everything was fine. I was in the bathroom during the argument. With everything settled, we planned to go to dinner. My roommate and I drove her grandparents and my fiance drove with the remainder of the family. We split like this because we are the only two who know the parking lot, my fiance and I, when her grandma was silent the entire drive. When we arrived at dinner, her grandma started glaring at all of us. She eventually refused to order and went to sit outside the restaurant. We assumed she wasn't feeling well and went back to the hotel or was still upset about the argument. The following day, she refused to come to a family dinner I was preparing for all week. We figured she was still upset. We were annoyed by the rudeness and blatant disregard for all the work we put in, but we still had fun. She ended up staying at the hotel for the remainder of the trip. The rest of her family continued to visit with us and the trip ended on a happy note. The next day, I noticed that her grandma blocked my entire family on Facebook. We spoke to my future mother-in-law and got the real story. Apparently, on the way to dinner, her grandma thought that our roommate and I were getting too friendly. She is somehow convinced that I'm going to leave my fiance for our roommate, steal our house, and have my family help. My fiance was shocked to the point of being speechless. When she was sitting outside the restaurant, she was nearly storming back in and accusing us in front of the entire restaurant. She has not spoken to us since and is apparently acting like everything is normal now that she's home. My fiance's family have all been apologizing and assuring us that none of them think that that's what is happening. I guess what really upsets me is the lack of care for planning I put into the dinner and that she thinks that lowly of me. I've never done anything to suggest those are my intentions and have been nothing but excellent to her granddaughter. What also upsets me is my grandma was so excited to see her grandma. My grandma is not doing well health-wise and we don't know how much longer she'll be around. The disappointment in my grandma's face hurt me, knowing she wouldn't be able to visit with somebody she hasn't seen in years. My fiance and I have talked and do not believe we've done anything wrong. We're currently holding a wedding invitation. I still really care for her other family members until we get some kind of apology. If it were up to me, I'd cut all ties, but I'm willing to get over that for a day if my fiance really wants her grandmother there. She's never been anything but kind to me, so this sudden shift is shocking. So some relevant comments on this one. Jamicam says maybe she is beginning to suffer some cognitive issues. If she hasn't behaved like this in the past, then don't cut her off just because of one incident. Your fiance should speak to her parents about any concerns and figure out together what needs to be done, if anything. Do not push her to cut ties with grandmother. Smooth Ad says, my mother's aunt accused me of stealing her jewelry while staying in a house during college. We understood something was wrong and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I was living in a dormitory and didn't see her since high school. Man Bear Boar says, OP, I know you said your mother-in-law is having her screened at her next follow-up. She needs a psychiatrist or a neurologist or both. A dramatic shift in behavior coupled with the fear and anger you're describing here is a classic and common sign of Alzheimer's that fits with her age range. I'm sorry you're going through this, and I know it's incredibly hurtful. I know it's difficult, but I would suggest dropping it, aside from advocating for her medical care. The real and devastating effects of Alzheimer's on the brain essentially means that she is no longer herself in those moments. It is not the person you know doing those things. Have someone assigned as a grandma minder at the wedding to keep her behavior in check and remove her if she's beginning to have an outburst. Best of luck. Ethan Rhodes says, I understand this is upsetting, but I don't think you're being rational about this. She's an elderly woman and this indicates there's some type of cognitive problem. It shouldn't upset you what she thinks about you because she's not thinking logically. It can be upsetting to have family members who have these type of issues, but a lot of people deal with it as relative age. You need to be the bigger person here and the kinder person and have some compassion. Destroyer says, look, we can all sit around playing Reddit doctor and guess what? UTI, dementia, Alzheimer's condition the grandmother may or may not have. But playing the guessing game accomplishes nothing and doesn't move anything forward. Wait for what the actual doctors say and go from there regarding whatever her condition may be. In the meantime, in quotes, when she was sitting outside the restaurant, she was near storming back in and accusing us in front of the entire restaurant and says, this needs to be planned for. While empathetic to the grandmother situation, wouldn't that one of the biggest, happiest moments of your lives be ruined by acting like everything is okay and blindly assuming she won't storm in and accuse us in front of everyone at your wedding? I'm sorry. I truly empathize and hope she gets the care that she needs, whatever the cause. But you don't have to create this risk and stand on the altar hoping she doesn't do it. You don't have to cut all ties. Get some answers first, but regardless, having the person that was seriously considering storming in and accusing you in front of everyone at your wedding is a horrible, horrible idea. And I kind of assume because of the nature of the story, and especially OP's last line where he said, she's never been anything but kind to me, so the sudden shift is shocking. And, whenever we get a sudden shift of behavior, there's the chance it points to, cognitive issues, etc., etc. We've seen it in previous stories as well. And before I say my next line, I'm definitely not saying that's not the case, but I will also say that sometimes people are just assholes. And I think, we need to point that out at the same time. Obviously, the switch in behavior does point it in that direction because it's just a sudden change and everything was fine before this. But I feel like I'm very much with Destroyer's comment on this one where it said, playing the guessing game isn't really going to help. You can just sit back, wait to see what the doctors say, and then you can go from there, whilst also planning ahead for various scenarios, because at your wedding, you don't want nothing like that going on at your wedding. Holy moly. So then OP came in with an update and said, hey all, so I made this post 2 weeks ago about my fiance's grandma accusing me of wanting to cheat on my future wife with our roommate. Since then, things have developed quite rapidly. She finally called my fiance last night. The call lasted all of 3 minutes and was lots of awkward silence, and this wasn't meant to hurt you, my fiance, not me, and I'm still afraid for you. The call ended and my fiance didn't change her feelings on this situation. Not being satisfied, my fiance called her back the following morning and explained she didn't like how the call went. Her grandma burst into a fit and called our roommate a dog that needs to move out. My fiance was also told to protect your home and evict her. I was offended by you're expecting too much of him. Me. You work nights and leave those two at home. He's no saint. She cited a previous relationship between my fiance's aunt and a man. They were engaged and he cheated on her. The aunt has said several times this situation is no way near alike and that I am not like that man. Her grandma has doubled down on her theories and has not apologized. She is also convinced I'm the one that removed her from the guest list. I voiced my opinion, but have left the ultimate final choice up to my fiance, who seems pretty set on her not being invited. I know a lot of replies mention dementia, but based on what my future mother-in-law has said, this has happened before. I'm wondering if she's just expecting to get away with it because she always has. With all of these recent developments, would it be bad to leave her off the guest list? I'm worried it will cause a fight or she will say something and ruin our big day. So personally for me, reading that and seeing that she's got a pattern of this kind of behavior, and of course I'm still not saying it can't be something cognitive or whatever, but because of the pattern of the behavior and seeing it's happened before, etc., it kind of feels like myself, I'd be really concerned that that was going to happen at the wedding. And the way that she thinks about the OP, and if I was in OP's position, I thought, someone's thinking about me in that way. Would I want them at my special day? No, I wouldn't. And whilst the fiance seems to be on OP's side in this, I would still be relaying those feelings to the fiance and saying, look, I'm not really comfortable with someone who might turn up, make an absolute scene in front of everyone, doesn't think about me in a positive light anyway. Why should I pay for them to be at an event? But Golden Dragon says, since you are the innocent party here, where your in-laws and your fiancé believed in you, you should leave the decision to your fiancé to invite her grandma or not. Because by your post, it seems that her grandma's accusation has no ground and she's stating nonsense due to seeing her own daughter's betrayal. Her family knows their grandma best and they can make the decision regarding her, because it will be a heavier burden for them later on, whether they will regret or rejoice in having her present. And if they want their grandma present while you don't, you may cause tension as well. You can avoid the confusion, hurt, and mistake by allowing your fiancé to make this decision and just abiding and following through with her. Levi Moonbeam says, frankly, I'd be afraid of her making a scene at the wedding, like standing up and screaming objections in the middle of the ceremony. Maroon Grad says, this was my thought too. My fiancé isn't inviting her grandmother because her grandmother doesn't approve of the marriage and has been trying to cause problems between us. My fiancé doesn't want to deal with her grandmother continuing to make a scene at the wedding. When people ask, be blunt. Tell the simple truth. Fiancé's grandmother, fiancé's decision, grandmother's bad behavior. Another commenter says, this is the way a lot of older, especially religious people are. I have 2 female cousins that are like sisters to me, and they consider me their little brother. About 20 years ago, they were living together in a house in a major college town in the south. The older one got married and moved with her husband across the country. I was living about 1,000 miles away at the time, going to college, but my roommate was moving out and I was looking for something new. My cousin and I started talking about me moving down and transferring schools. Her parents got wind of it and cried out, "What would people think?" We were both puzzled as we had no idea what they were talking about. Turns out, they thought people would think that since we are a man and a woman living together, even in separate rooms, that people would get the wrong idea. We just laughed and said, this isn't Alabama or West Virginia. Remarkable C says, does grandma's presence bring your fiancé joy? If not, she doesn't deserve to go to your wedding. Weddings should be happy occasions. Grandma seems to be a miserable woman who wants everyone else to be miserable too. Wildly Uninteresting says, considering her constant efforts to cause trouble, leaving her off the guest list is the wisest choice. Better her unhappy and not ruining your wedding than unhappy and present. If anyone asks, it was a tough choice, but Grandma has been trying to constantly cause issues with us. We didn't want the risk on this day with unnecessary drama. Be certain or have a plan if she forces herself there. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from Local Honeydew, who says, am I the arsehole for insisting my friends SO pay their share for holiday accommodation? My friend, male 47, and I, female 43, booked to go to an island we'd both been keen to go to. We booked a 2-bed cabin, and because of the popularity of the place, we had to book and pay 10 months in advance. We split the cost 50-50. 2 months ago, before we were due to go, he meets someone and they commence dating. The holiday comes up, and understandably she was a bit uncomfortable with him coming with me. I was given an ultimatum. Either she comes or the holiday is called off. I didn't say yes immediately because I needed to check with the accommodation, and as the island has a limited number of guests allowed, I needed the okay from them first. My hesitation wasn't taken well. They thought I wasn't keen. I got back to them within 24 hours and said I'd gotten the all clear for his girlfriend to also come and she could book plane tickets for her. A week later, he informed me she had the tickets, and I asked him if we could discuss rebalancing the accommodation costs now that there was 3 of us coming, as it should now be a 3-way split. I was surprised that he responded with anger. As far as he was concerned, the accommodation was paid for, and it was wrong and greedy of me to expect money from his girlfriend. He told me that he was paying for the entire holiday for his girlfriend, so it was still going to be just him and me paying, so it was unfair of me to not pay for half. I told him that there's 3 adults, 3 people, 3-way split. If he chose to pay for his girlfriend's third, that was his choice and nothing to do with me. He told me his girlfriend was going to buy me a cocktail. Cheeky bastards, to say thank you for the accommodation. But if I was going to insist on a split, then I could forget it and buy my own I could forget it and buy my own damn cocktails, as he couldn't believe I was being so selfish. The thing is, a cocktail is $15, and I was currently covering half her accommodation costs, $600. I don't think I was an arsehole for asking her/them to cover her share of the accommodation. I hadn't even met her yet, but they thought I should cover her cost because it was already paid for. Am I the arsehole for insisting she pay for a component of the cost? Now, I know you probably want your holiday, OP. It sounds like you've been looking forward to it for some time, but if I was in your situation and petty me would just say, I'd cancel it if you can, get your money back, because it sounds like regardless, if you was to go, if they was to split it 3 ways, it sounds like it would still be like a shit time to me. It sounds like it'd be awful with the attitude that you're getting already and the entitled attitude in itself. If you was coming along, if you was invited last minute on someone else's holiday, I'd want to speak to that person myself and say, you sure you don't mind me coming? If you do, then I'm out, because I get where you're coming from. You've had this holiday booked in advance. Not expect that person to front the cost of my accommodation. And, you know, we're just talking about accommodation at this point in time. What else is this going to go into? And just think in the evenings where, like, we've done some stuff. You might have gone to the beach all day, or, you know, gone out walking or whatever. You come back, you want to chill. They're sat on the sofa all being lovey-dovey, you know, first holiday vibes together and all that kind of stuff. Who knows what other sounds you might be hearing. It just sounds like a shit time, I gotta say. But just hanging out says not the arsehole. Pull out of the vacation if you can. Still get a full refund. This will not end up being fun for you. Summer Oracle says this, OP. This is a very real chance this trip is going to be unpleasant for you, potentially even doing permanent damage to your friendship. Passionate Absorber says, good suggestion. I have a feeling this is going to turn into a romantic getaway third wheel situation if that relationship even lasts that long. Boo Boo says, being forced to be a third wheel is bad enough, without being expected to pay for the privilege. Also, a free holiday in exchange for 1 cocktail. Get the fuck. Ligma says, not the arsehole. Is it too late to get a refund on anything? I wouldn't want to spend a single second with them, considering they're treating you like trash for asking for a simple contribution on a trip that the new girlfriend has weaseled her way into. I'd bet my bottom dollar that she either can't afford and is insecure, or she's just that entitled. If he's paying for a whole trip, then he needs to cough up more for the stay. Bad friend. OP says, I'm super tempted to throw it all in. Demands have started about removing myself from the cabin to give them privacy and cancelling pre-booked plans because she doesn't want to do them. Yeah, cancel this shit right now. Holy moly. The OP comes in with her update and says, thank you everyone. Interesting to see various lines of thoughts. It seems there's a split between people that think everyone pays equally no matter what. Those that think a couple sharing a bedroom are treated as one person cost-wise, and those that think the cost should be split taking into account the shared area. 1/3 per bedroom, 1/3 shared spaces. With this in mind and everything else going on, I called the accommodation and discussed options. Then called my friend. I explained to him that we'd made the agreement to split everything equally when there was only 2 of us going, but I no longer felt that agreement was fair. I suggested the third option, splitting the cost of the communal areas 3 ways, but set cost per bedroom, and also stated that any food, activities, etc. wouldn't be split anymore, would each be responsible for our own, and they could decide as a couple how they were paying for themselves. It didn't go down well at all. He didn't see why he should be out of pocket because I decided to go against our agreement that I'm paying 50% of everything. I stuck to it and said I'd be willing to negotiate the accommodation cost, but there was no way I was going to pay for half of his girlfriend's activities or her dinners and drinks, and it was ridiculous for him to think that I should be paying half for his girlfriend's costs, especially since she's a complete stranger, and he'd already asked me to change all of our previous plans to suit her. He called me a B-word and told me I was acting crazy. I stopped him and said, from that, I don't think this holiday is going to work. And I had spoken to the accommodation, and I was going to cancel as of today. I told him if he still wanted to go, then the accommodation would hold open the booking for him for 72 hours, and if he confirmed with them, I'd instructed them to hold on to the $1,800 as what it contributed to the booking, and refund me the rest, and his girlfriend and him would have to pay the hotel to finalize. If they didn't confirm, I'd get the refund for the whole amount, and then forward him his share. He went quiet and then told me that since I was changing the rules at the last minute, I should leave the entire accommodation payment because it wasn't his fault that I no longer wanted to go, leaving them in the lurch, and I'd be ruining his holiday with his girlfriend. I told him I was cancelling and I would definitely not be paying for any accommodation I wouldn't be using. I might have been a little petty when I told him he'd still be paying for his girlfriend's costs. It'd just be a little more than he was expecting because I was no longer going to subsidize them. I cancelled my flights and the accommodation and emailed him all the details. And OP leaves another message update in a moment, but Jules me says, "Wow, I'm so sorry. They're both immature. I bet you she is young, offering a cocktail and then taking it back. She's young or broke or cheap. Not someone you want to go on a nice trip with. I would say since there are so many requests by her, this has become a trip more about her and therefore needs to be split 3 ways. How is it fair she can kick me out of the cabin? Sadly, you may lose a friend over this. He's obviously siding with his 2-minute jealous girlfriend over a long-term friend. OP says she's 51, so the oldest. I don't know her at all, never met her, so can't say whether she's cheap or broke." Hippy Tappy Slappy says, "Who is this guy to you? How did you meet him? How long have you known him? I cannot fathom someone expecting this from someone else. It sounds like an obvious self-centered sibling taking advantage of a family bond type of entitlement. This can't have been the first time he has done something this inconsiderate." OP says, "I've known him for 5 years, as a friend. Yes, I've had some issues with him for lack of empathy regarding others and general selfishness. He was a mid-40s guy that basically never had a long-term girlfriend. I just sort of went with he too used to doing his own thing to pay much attention to it. We've traveled together before and in larger groups. I have issues in the past with his lack of planning, leaving a lot up to me, but his entire personality seemed to change overnight when he started seeing this new girlfriend. Nothing was good enough. Before, he'd at least discuss things, talk options. This time was like hitting a brick wall. His way or no way. Decided this was going to happen without talking to me, and then got angry when I wanted to discuss it first. Then OP left the final update and said, I haven't kept in contact with them for obvious reasons, but through some mutual type of friends I found out the following. They planned to go but tried to find cheaper accommodation on the island, so let the hold expire without making any contact with the accommodation. From my understanding, everything was booked up completely that weekend and for the next 6 months. They lost the option to use the cabin and someone immediately booked it when it became free. There's a waitlist. I received back the full deposit and immediately transferred his portion to him as I stated I would. Never got an acknowledgement he received it, but it was an account I had paid into previously. My bank assured me it was good. A mutual friend told me the ex was pissed off as, against my advice, he had bought non-refundable, non-transferable plane tickets and refused to buy travel insurance. So he's out the cost of those fares, about $3,200. And that because I pulled out, his holiday with his girlfriend was totally ruined and I owed him an apology and the cost of the fares. Not going to happen. Myself, I've booked a holiday back at the island where I'm in a single apartment by myself and plan to have an awesome time. I will never not be shocked by some people's entitlement. The words come out of this 47-year-old guy's mouth that he's expecting OP to front the cost here. As I was reading through it, I was thinking, oh God, is he just like, because he's in this like honeymoon period with his girlfriend, is he just blinded by love? But it seemed like he's always been this way, just small parts of it coming out time and time again. What a Burke. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.